we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from ISFF. Also, as well, the Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, the Lakers Fast Break, and also what we do for Game Source. Plus, also go ahead and check out the Domination Sports Nation special happy birthday to one half of the team, Lardieri and Dominic Lardieri. Chris is off this week to celebrate Dominic's birthday. So, absolutely go ahead and check out, in honor of his birthday, Domination Sports Nation indeed. Also, as well, go ahead and check us out each and every time out right here at the ISFF on the Pop Culture Cosmos YouTube and Facebook channels. If you like what you see, please subscribe today or like and follow on Facebook to get the latest notifications when we go live in the air with the Pop Culture Cosmos, PC Multiverse, State of Pro Wrestling, or Inside Sports Fantasy Football. And last but not least, if you have any last minute questions for us in regards to your fantasy team, whether it's waiver wire pickups, starting lineup changes, and more, go ahead and always give us a shout out. isfantasyfootball at yahoo.com or Inside Sports Fantasy Football on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But great to have you here. NFL Week 14 is now upon us. Looking forward to some great matchups this week, and here to discuss a major return and the lead topic on today's show. Good man indeed, of course. He's the madman from Toronto. He did get out of Toronto traffic to go ahead and talk some Justin Jefferson. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice. Sean, great to have you here for NFL Week 14. I'm glad you're enjoying it, cool bro. It's the first time playing fantasy football. Of course, truly appreciate it. As far as you watching and catching the show, my question to you, though, Magic Man, is Justin Jefferson, after an injury and a bye week to the Minnesota Vikings, returns to the lineup this week. Justin Jefferson, in many drafts, in fact, one of my drafts, was a number one, number two, or number three draft choice. He was in the top three as far as projected amongst many individual teams out there. And it's been kind of a so-so season. At times, he's really stood out. But Kirk Cousins is out for the season. Josh Dobbs did not have Justin Jefferson along the side for his last game and threw 4 interceptions. They've taken a week off. Justin Jefferson's now back. Should you start Justin Jefferson this weekend for your fantasy team?
Gerald, I don't have a bell and whistle here, but if I did, I'd be playing it incessantly. Yes, the Minnesota Vikings are in Las Vegas this weekend, and I would definitely start Justin Jefferson this week, 100%. The rocket scientist did throw 4 interceptions in his last performance, but a week to prepare, especially with the kind of head coach he has, Gerald, with KOC's attention to detail. I think Jefferson has a big week if they're targeting him because Minnesota, it's not as if they can massage Jefferson into his all pro self, Gerald. They need him to be his all pro self right away, come 4:15 p.m.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think you do have no choice but to start him. I know Joshua Dobbs was a little bit of a hot choice halfway through, about a pickup, guy who was not even thought about as far as an afterthought. And it suddenly decided to start playing well on the midst of a free agent season. Everybody started to get, oh, maybe I got to go ahead and pick him up for my team. Then lo and behold, he struggles in his last outing with 4 interceptions. But you see a bounce back for him simply because Justin Jefferson's out there on the wing.
Yes, 100%. And they're playing a team that's kind of vulnerable to the kind of schemes that KFC likes to run, and Dobbs is very efficient at, Gerald. So I would expect them to target him very early with a lot of bubble screens, wide receiver screens. Wouldn't shock me at all if they really tried to pull Spillane out from the middle with Hawkinson, Gerald, and try and open up the middle of the field for Jefferson because we know he can run the whole route tree So it's not as if they're actually limited in what they can do. And as you and I both know, that Raiders secondary is very vulnerable.
The Raiders everywhere are vulnerable, but this season, but yeah, absolutely. Cool, bro. Yes, you can play online. If you want to look into it, yes. Actually, I played online for close to 2.5 years. I was actually videotaped a lot of it on actually on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel and other, especially on Facebook and all that. We actually had a crew that would go every Monday, Demolition Force, and we were able to go ahead and play online from all around the country. And yeah, absolutely. So yes, you can look at that. Works a lot like it does for regular Dungeons and Dragons, in that you do everything electronically and all the dice rolls are randomized and things of that nature. But yeah, setting up a character and playing an adventure, yeah, you can. Just there's several thousand groups out there that do play online if you ever want to go ahead and look into it. But it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Justin Jefferson, I think, is going to be someone that you do have to start. Whether or not will go ahead and get you the 16 to 20 points that you're used to getting from him, that's another concern altogether, my friend. But coming off of my one of my biggest scoring weeks of the year with all three of my teams, 160, 170, 170, and 125, and I still managed to only be 2-1. That tells uh, getting Justin Jefferson can help increase that scoring. And I know it's going to be at the cost of another receiver coming in, but I do have to go by with what I'm familiar with. And if one of the team that I did draft Justin Jefferson in, I have to go ahead and say, you know what, despite who's throwing to him, I got to take the risk. This is what I drafted him high up for. I might as well use him.
100% drilled, and we've seen that even though there's a big drop off between your number one and your number two, your number one wide receiver needs to get himself open and can contribute without the number one being there. We saw that with Jamar Chase on Monday Night Football. I'd expect Justin Jefferson, who's basically a film junkie, to have basically seen everything he needs to know right now about what Dobbs' strengths are and what his weaknesses are against the game plan. Again, I expect them to target Jefferson very early.
Once again, it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It is the Magic Man, Sean Grice, along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Truly appreciate it. Of course, it is NFL Week 14. And before we get into the woof, 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 the doghouse in honor of the Lartieris, big shout out again to Dominic on his birthday. I want to go ahead and make sure everyone knows out there that the NFL Week 14, again, a lot of parity in the league, which I know our comrade in arms, Joe Soro, does not like, but it is
Well,
what it is, my friend.
you know what, Gerald? I'm glad it's just you and me here, and
Mhm.
I think if Chris was here, he'd agree with me of what I'm about to say. I understand where Joe Soro and Tom Brady are coming from, but also, come on, dudes, we're also living in the golden era of the defensive lineman, Gerald. And I think the NFL takes a little while to adjust to certain new schemes or um, like the flavor of the month, but the rebirth of the defensive tackle as being your star of your defense is back, Gerald, and they're disrupting a lot of offensive linemen this year. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. When you look at the sloppy play on both sides, there's a lot more pre-snap penalties now than there has ever been, as far as I remember, Gerald.
Mhm.
The refereeing, we could have a whole show on that, but regardless, I think the era of the defensive lineman is also back, and that's contributing a lot to the poor play.
Also here today, good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing at LakersBall.com, as Ox1947, of course, also as well. He is the man behind Simblades, Simblades with a Y.com. It is Joe Soro. And Joe, before I get into your thoughts on a good matchup for NFL Week 14, as Magic Man has already elaborated on, and I'll get more advice from him coming up. Your thoughts on Justin Jefferson coming back in the lineup? A must play for fantasy owners out there, despite Joshua Dobbs's 4 interceptions.
No, I would say the Jefferson experiment this year is probably done. Dobbs, someone who knows Dobbs well, he was in Pittsburgh for a while. Not surprised that he played as well as he has in spurts due to being coached the right way as much as they can. He was coached terribly in Pittsburgh, but that's a different story. Dobbs is not a hard quarterback to game plan against if you know what you're doing, and we saw what happened there. Now I have Hawkinson as my tight end in one of my very, very important leagues, and
he might eat this week too.
yeah, a lot of times a struggling quarterback will rely on the tight end to bail him out. Usually checkdowns to the running backs, and also tight ends. He's actually played pretty well with Dobbs. So I have no really. I mean, I have choices, but that's my. I'm gonna roll with that one and hopefully win this week so I can get into the playoffs in that one. It looks pretty good, but still need to win this week to guarantee it. As far as Jefferson, again, that takes a little bit more skill to get the ball downfield. So they're gonna play bump. They're gonna play maybe a little bump and run, so that Dobbs doesn't throw the ball quick doesn't throw the ball quick. And they do that, it's going to be much more difficult for Dobbs to get the ball to Jefferson if he's going to do any kind of 5 or 10 yard slant or any outs or anything, any kind of seam route. But if you have no choice, roll with them. If you have choices, I highly recommend going with those.
So week 14, what are some of the matchups that you're looking at as far as from a fantasy perspective, if I can ask you? Because there's some pretty good matchups that are coming up with a certain particular Dallas-Philadelphia one I have in mind to start off with.
I have Swift in my second important fantasy, I should say 1 and 2. However, Swift hasn't really been getting the ball a lot because Hurts is taking all the 1-yarders, especially at the goal line. Swift has been kind of left to be just kind of like a third down back type. But he got rocked pretty good last week. Not enough to where he's not going to play this week, but if I'm Philly, I start using him a little bit more, and you'll probably be able to protect Jalen Hurts a little bit more because Jalen is starting to get beat up here. Those tush pushes are starting to affect them. You might not think so, but those, if you've ever been in a huddle like that, I used to play center back in the day, and trust me when I say this, that place can be very, very scary if you're not if you don't have control of your body, your limbs, your extremities. And you're talking about the NFL, which is 500 times worse than anything I ever played in. And I would highly recommend Philly to start using their talent. They have really good talent around Jalen Hurts. Start using it, protect him. And Dallas, I don't know how Dallas is going to play this week. I know that McCarthy's had surgery for, I think, his appendix.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's going to play a factor in that.
Well, Dak threw 3 touchdowns last time on the Eagles. So normally I would advise against it, but man, he's the hottest quarterback right now.
I made a mistake. I had Dak in 2 of my leagues and I let him go after the first 3 weeks.
I sat him down 2 weeks ago and I made that mistake, and I didn't do it again last week. I made sure I had started him.
Yeah, I made it worse. I just thought I've always felt that Dak Prescott's gotten a raw deal from the media. I think they pound on him for reasons I don't believe he deserves. They want him to be Tom Brady, I feel like sometimes. And I go, dude, this is Dak Prescott. He's a winning quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. And the shortfalls usually come from the stability around a quarterback in a lot of ways in terms of not being able to win a playoff game and things like that. Why is it that since 1995, even Troy Aikman, those last few years, how come he struggled to continue to win? Tony Romo, Drew Bledsoe when he was there, Dak Prescott. You're talking about there's too much instability on a Jerry Jones football team because there's this pressure that's always there that is interrupted also by someone who doesn't call the plays and isn't on the field in a coaching manner. He's just there as a pseudo football guy, which I still say that Jerry Jones doesn't really. That's not really him. As much as he's been around football, I know he played in college. It's just different when you're coaching and you're in it day in day out. But Dak has had an MVP caliber season, and the way Purdy dissected Philly last week, I think if I'm Dak Prescott and if McCarthy can somehow convey what he wants to do in this game to his offensive coordinator, if he doesn't show up, I'm not sure if he will or not. I would say try to emulate that as best you can, and I think Dallas might have a shot at beating them. And if Dallas beats Philly, Philly's in trouble. Philly might be reeling to the point where they might not even be able to win the division, and then obviously I still feel they'll get the wild card. But I think Philly will have a huge advantage if they win the division. Because as far as this week is concerned, the Niners are the greatest thing that ever lived. I remember the first 4 weeks they were doing the same thing. They went through a 3-game downfall, and all of a sudden they were the crappiest team that ever lived. I mean, the fair weather media is what they are. They don't understand that it's a 17-game season, and sometimes you hit walls. But I think Philly's going to be okay. I really do. I actually think Philly's going to win this game.
Magic Man, any last thoughts on a matchup you think might be valuable for fantasy football owners out there? I'm thinking right now the Bills at the Chiefs. Did you have any in mind before we get to the woof woof woof? Get to the doghouse.
Honestly, Gerald, we'd be doing a disservice to the audience and fantasy owners if we said any other answer. That's likely your safest pick this week. That game's probably going to have close to 75 points. Might get a little higher depending on Josh Allen's desperation, especially in the fourth quarter, Gerald. He's prone to taking chances, and that's not going to change. So it could be a high possession game in that fourth quarter. So I'd expect close to 80 points between the two teams.
I agree with you on that. And it's funny because I had to sit down Josh Allen, and I never thought I had to sit down outside of a bye Josh Allen, and I've had to this season. But I expect him to come back strong this weekend with a good performance against an iffy Kansas City Chiefs defense this weekend. But guys, before we head on out, I want to go ahead and ask as we head down on the lawn, we come out, it's still cold. You got the Christmas decorations all out, shining bright, but you look over and there's your dog. Your dog's right there. He's looking at you with those sad eyes because you haven't paid attention to him. So it's our time this week to go woof, woof, woof. Head on over to the doghouse. Joe, who is your dog of the week in the doghouse? Woof, woof, woof. Go ahead, Joe. I got you on.
Sorry, can I say Buffalo?
Yeah, why not?
I think Buffalo beats KC because right now everyone thinks KC is going to.
The spread is 3, just to let you know.
I think everyone's like KC is due for a big game, but I think the Bills are they're more desperate than KC at this point. I believe they'll upset KC this week.
Magic Man, have you got one in mind? It's either 3 or 3.5, depending on where you go. I know that the Vegas loves to do the half points, but it's listed right now from what I'm seeing on MSN at 3, but I'm assuming 3.5 will probably be a lot of places as well. But Who is your woof 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 dog of the week in the doghouse?
Panthers get their second win.
Ooh, nice. You're going for it, my friend. Why do you think, my friend?
They've been playing better the past month, at least. They're trying something different offensively. Um, they almost pulled it out last week, Gerald. So I just think it's a divisional game. You could throw the records out, and
It's 6.5, just to let everybody know.
yeah,
Right
that's man. Any divisional game that's like beyond 4.5, Gerald. Really, really, I'd steer clear of it. So yeah, I see the Panthers winning 16-12. It's gonna be a barn burner in the Bayou.
I've got one that you may like, Magic Man, before we head on out, and I'm picking the Raiders because they're 2.5 to 2.5 point underdogs to the Vikings. And despite the fact that I do have Justin Jefferson, I'm still not convinced that Joshua Dobbs is going to come back and be consistent. You don't know who you're going to get. You're going to get the guy that was pretty solid, rock solid for a few weeks, or you're going to get the guy that threw 4 interceptions last week. So that being the case, at home, Raiders under new coaching regime, maybe can go ahead and get the job done. They've had some time to go ahead and prepare. So let's see if they can go ahead and get it done. So I'm giving them the edge this weekend. All right, everyone. That's going to do it for Inside Sports Fantasy Football. If you have any questions for us, ISFF, right there for you. Inside Sports Fantasy Football, that's isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter. Guys, any last thoughts before we head on out for NFL Week 14?
You know what, Gerald? I know I just said the Panthers, but really don't be surprised if the Bears somehow upset the Lions this week.
Really? Not enough faith in the Lions, I'm sensing, but
Not in December. Not in December.
Yeah, I can understand that. They don't have that track record. Joe, anything else that stands out for NFL Week 14 before we head on out?
I'm gonna say that tomorrow's game might end up being 3-0.
I'm not surprised. We had a 6-0 game last weekend, so I cannot believe people actually paid to go watch that.
Bill Belichick is going to need to either accept that he needs to start drafting talent instead of specific philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have the greatest eraser in NFL history of Tom Brady anymore. Bill Belichick might be tanking. I think that probably plays a factor in this, although I don't know who they're going to get in this year's draft because I believe Caleb Williams will not be what people think he's going to be.
I hope you're wrong on that. I like Caleb.
The ceiling is Carson Palmer. The middle area is bust.
I'm not saying I'm going to disagree with you. I'm just saying I'm hoping you're wrong.
He's got a lot of Ben Simmons he's starting to look like a Ben Simmons type. Talent off the charts, but his brain is up his butt.
Oh, all right. I disagree, but
there's nothing to disagree with.
I can disagree.
There's a track record. There's a track record of.
He's got a track record of a Heisman Trophy.
Moronic activities from a non-pro. One of the things that I saw was the fact that this guy had the gall to say, "I want to get a piece of the franchise." Ever since he said that, by the way, he started losing
Well, they lost because their defense absolutely sucks.
True. That is true. It
sucked last year, and it sucks this year.
He also hasn't been playing well either. This guy was supposed to win.
And Gerald, Jameis Winston also won a Heisman and then stole crab legs.
Yeah, it's not a guarantee of success. You're right.
It has nothing to do with the guarantee. Yeah. We all know that there's no guarantee, but it's his actions that are speaking much louder than his game right now.
And Baker Mayfield running from the cops. It's real.
We'll see.
The Heisman Award winners are just a real great, classy bunch.
It doesn't help that he's coming out of USC, which has produced really no great quarterback.
I'm not going to disagree with you there.
And his crying in his parents' arms and talking about Netflix, that tells you where his brain is. Guys, the writing is, if you open your eyes, really open your eyes and be objective, and stop being in your feelings with everything, it will tell you right there usually what's going on. You don't need to go through people saying things online or doing things like that. You gotta focus on that. You gotta focus on that. Joining my cult, I don't have a cult. I'm a one-man gang.
By the way, Gerald, who is USC's opponent in the Dr. Pepper or Pepto-Bismol Bowl?
I don't get see. You know what? When USC started losing, it was just a matter of I couldn't care less. These Jimmy Kimmel bowls or Gronk bowls or Dr. Pepper bowls or toilet bowls or whatnot. Again, until the NCAA smartens up and wants to really make money by turning the whole bowl system into a playoff system, I couldn't care less. I could care less what 6-6 team plays and what 7-5 team. USC, I'll probably just see it that day. But yeah, it's
Joe's alma mater wishes they were 6-6.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, just
having talent and having shit for brains is not good.
Did you have to go ahead and drop it on that? And on that note,
right,
it is Inside Sports Fantasy Football.
Right.
Thanks so much for watching this thing. We'll see you next week. Hopefully everybody will be doing well out there with their fantasy football team. And of course, we'll go ahead and catch you next time for NFL Week 15 right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football.
That's a great intro.
Gerald, why are some of our opening things on Lakers Fast Break pixelated?